Hi, I'm Tom at Just One Pack, and this is AC On, the short Alpha Clash podcast, where I'll talk all things Alpha Clash on my way to work. So, today I want to touch on beginner-friendly contenders, a bit more about that in a bit. But first, I want to talk about a couple of news items. So, if you have not seen my latest YouTube upload or my Instagram post, there's some great news for people who like to have a bit of merchandise. So far, the only way to get Alpha Clash merchandise were through Kickstarter events and post sales of whatever did not get picked up. Very tight windows for doing that sort of thing. But now, the good folks at Rising Empire Studio has teamed up with Redbubble, or created an account at Redbubble, which is a print-on-demand service, and it is now possible to order official merchandise from Redbubble, and so have I. So if you want to see, I've ordered a few posters. If you want to see those, there's a picture of them on Instagram at Just One Pack. It's just one with a one and a pack. I'll leave a link in the show notes to this, but now you know. The other thing is an update on the board game. So this universe keeps expanding. Merchandise, sure. We already got a novel, a graphic novel, a comic book coming really soon, I hope. They should be quite near, so hopefully. And now a board game. So the fact that there will be a board game is not the new thing. We just learned a little bit more about it. But it's sort of a heads up. All good things to all of you. There will be a metric ton of giveaways. I think they said once a week. And now that I'm saying that out loud, I realise I should have put that in my notes, because that sounds ridiculously often. But I think once a week there will be a giveaway from very soon until the Gamefound campaign begins in earnest. So find something Alpha Clashy on any social media, and hopefully they will share the giveaways there. I know I will on my Instagram at least when I see them, but I might miss one. So that was a shorter letter, and now for the real thing, for what I've prepared more than just talking about flashy news. So last episode I was talking about what products to tell someone new to the game to go and get, and I touched briefly in the last bit about how to present this game to new players, and I've been brooding a bit on that, and I came up with an idea to build these pre-con decks, or to build demo decks. So the original, I don't know with the new, but with the original Ambassador program, you got demo decks. I've mostly run out, but I could build my own out of bulk, was the thought. And that raises the question, what to put in them, not just in terms of rarity of card, but what contenders would have good mechanics for this. So I made a top 3 list for new players when you want to introduce them to it, and a few spicy takes on new players that are not completely new to TCGs. So here goes. One of the things I wanted to avoid with demo decks, so to speak, is them being too complex for new players to play. So there is a few things that I've noticed is a bit confusing for new players. meaning players that had never played TCGs before. And I mentioned some of these before, but things like counters on things, which is represented by die, but apparently that once you get the hang of it, that is easy to understand. But if you don't have the routine in thinking of counters as sort of an arbitrary thing, that will be hard. If you do, no problem. You can just take out a D6 and say this represents one counter of bounty counters, or something, streak counters, anything. So for the very beginner decks, I want to avoid these. Also, the decks, I want to avoid a too deep, too complex state interaction. So I don't want a trigger on an instant, on a quick action, I want to keep the amount of layers to a minimum. So that's the basic premise for these. I also noticed that if there are triggers on your contender, that triggers only once in a while, not every turn. Those can be hard to remember. Even fairly seasoned players will have issues with remembering that their contender has some sort of ability. So I wanted to avoid that to some extent for the new players. There are plenty of things to keep track of when you're going through a demo, and special triggers that only triggers once every so and so is not a good thing for a new player. So here is my top 3 pick for new to TCG players, contenders for your demo deck. That was a long sentence. So, but here we go. At the third place, the third recommendation, if we were to rank them, I have put Moxie Ready to Hunt. Now, Moxie Ready to Hunt is third because the equipment, playing equipment and attaching equipment does require a little bit of mental load. Not much. Alpha Clashes in its base is not a very it's not a very hard game to learn if you can grasp the card types and concepts in one go. That would be true for anything, but it's not a complex game as such. The interactions can be fairly easy. The thing with attachments, weapons, is that once you have to play them and then attach them, and you can reattach them. There are some mechanics there which you need to learn. It is not the worst by any stretch, but it brings her in at third place for me. The next up is Clarity. So this with Clarity, her contender ability is straightforward, and you can use it every single time. Just have a look at the top card before you draw. Once you get the routine of that, you won't forget it. It's not a triggered effect. And there isn't, depending on what cards you put in the deck, of course, there isn't a specific there isn't a specifically hard way. It's not a specifically difficult contender to play as or to play with the cards that naturally fit into Clarity deck. A lot of looking for the solutions until you can and defending yourself until you sort of can release control and attack something big and nasty, and you can go search for it. So that is Clarity, Ageless Defender. The number 1 pick for me for a new player to play is Magnate Awakened, so the original Magnate. The reason for that is very, very straightforward aggro. You can build in some mechanisms, some benefits from having a lot of Magnate cards, which there are plenty of, even in low rarity, and it's just straightforward. What you want to do as a new player is attack and interact. Your goal has been set to eliminate the life total of your opponent, you want to do that. And Magnate is a very great way to do that, but also a great way to learn to keep a little bit back to defend yourself. So Magnate would be my number one pick for new player. Now the good thing about this is both Moxie Ready to Hunt and Magnate the Awaken just happens to be in the original Awakening Clash kits, so there is a possibility there for just picking them up. That does cost some money. So the other option is, and I mentioned it last time, is to build demo decks. And speaking of that, and before I reveal my honorable mentions for more advanced players, people coming from another TCG, specifically Magic would be a very close equivalent, and I've been told that was it Card Fight, something like that? No, Dragon Ball Z should be very, very close to this. But before I reveal my second choices or two honorable mentions for people coming from another card game, I just want to mention I had a micro epiphany, so to speak. So the thing is, if you want to build demo decks, you want them easy to play, sure. You also want them cheap enough for you to be able to give them away to players once they played with you. That means low rarity cards from your bulk store, right? So things that you would have plenty of play sets of. What it turns out, when I did a bit of research, and I've been talking about this on Discord last week for most of last week, someone came up with the idea that building demo decks with only 30 cards in them, instead of the usual constructed 50, you put 30 cards in. At first I was hesitant, but I get it now. There is a benefit to doing 30 cards, both for you who are actually building them. You can build more decks using fewer cards. You almost get 2 decks out of a single set. Also, it is much easier to build consistency in your deck with only 30 cards in it. And if you want to teach a new player that things interact with each other and there can be synergies in their decks, having only 30 cards brings that up more often. So for the purpose of demo decks, I would really consider, or I am going to go with 30 card demo decks. That means that Clash Kit decks is not the same. Clash Kit decks are complete structured decks with 50 cards in them plus the Contender. Sure, but if you go for 30 card demo decks, then that might be cheaper on you than the Clash Kits. Or you can pillage Clash Kits if you've got plenty of them. So that would be my tidbit. Try these contenders, these 3, Moxie, Clarity, and Magnate Awaken, but go with a 30 cards deck and keep it to commons and uncommons. There is plenty of room already with 3 sets out to do that. And then for my top 2 picks, or my 2 honorable mentions for cards relevant to more experienced players, demo decks still, but for more experienced players, I played with a talk demo deck, which I got off. I didn't write down the name. It was someone on Discord was kind enough to share his 30 card demo decks, and I had to play with it, and it works. I lost, but I often lost. I often lose, so no question, no news there. But it worked quite well. The thing is that it was sort of relying on enrage mechanics, so you have to deal yourself damage, which sort of is the thing to draw cards, and that is for new players very counterintuitive that you have a benefit from dealing damage to yourself. So, but experienced players will not have that. If you played Magic, if you played Black in Magic, dealing yourself damage to gain something else is a very common feature. So you won't have an issue there. So Torque might be an interesting build just to have a bit of spread and another way to go aggro. And Death is the only Harbinger on this I found easy enough to build for and to make sense of, even in a 30 card deck. By the way, the same guy also had a Death deck, so we reached the same conclusion there. But that is, I've built a Death deck with great enthusiasm. I like the mechanics there, but he also seems quite straightforward. Again, playing much like Magnate with the sort of archetype of having the sort of tribal thing of having Death cards, but she functions fairly okay. The thing with her is that now you have to take the portal into account. Well, I don't know. I haven't met people with a problem with that, but then again, I haven't taught many new players after that. So Death is a new and is a different mechanic, starting to peel things out of the graveyard. Oblivion, which again Black Magic players are fairly used to, so not an issue there. So that was my top picks for demo decks. I hope that will be of some help, and yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.